So without further ado, please help me welcome Richard Westenberger from Carter's. Thanks so much.
Thanks very much.
Yeah.
I think you looked great in the video, so no issues with that. I did notice in some of the early materials that went out for the summit that the speaker for today was supposed to be a very jovial-looking, bald-headed man who is our CEO, and unfortunately he wasn't able to be here today. I am rarely described as jovial. The Carter's table is nodding at that, but I do have more hair than Mike, so hopefully those two will balance out. So, show of hands, how many folks have young children in their lives today? Children, grandchildren? Great. Familiarity with Carter's and Oshkosh B'gosh. Who's heard of those brands? Okay, good. And those folks who haven't raised their hands, were you once children yourselves? That may cover the rest of the... Okay, not everybody raised their hands, so I'm not sure exactly who we have in the audience, but in any event, thanks for the invitation to be here today. We are a proud Atlanta company, a proud Georgia company, and it's a pleasure to have a chance to share a little bit more information about our company. We have a very long and rich history, not only just here in Georgia, but worldwide. We are a company that is evolving, is changing literally every day, and I hope you get a sense through my remarks that everything that comes with a company that's growing and evolving, everything's changing with it. Our infrastructure, our technology, people, processes, and systems. I am shaking a little bit with the Home Depot inventory number of $11 billion. Our inventory last quarter was about $350 million, and that felt like a lot to me, so I guess that'll help kind of reset the reference point here a little bit. I am joined today by a number of other members of the Carter's team, particularly from our supply chain and logistics functions. They are the real experts on these matters, and they're nodding again, so I'll take that we have the experts here. Specifically, Leo Verschoor, who's our Senior Vice President of Logistics and Transportation globally for us. He's going to join the panel discussion here shortly, so he'll share his expertise as well. We're in the young children's apparel business. It's basically all we do as a company. Oh, I forgot the most important slide that my attorneys make me always say. So this is a slide that basically says I may make some forward-looking statements. The future is uncertain. My forward-looking statements may not turn out to be true. So with that introduction and inspiring beginning, I'll jump in. So I think many of you raised your hand when I asked if you're familiar with Carter's and Oshkosh B'gosh. Our focus is young children's apparel. It's really all we do. We have a phrase that we use internally called birth to bus. So we provide products for families that have young children, everything you need from a newborn up to about age 7 or size 7. By the time the kids go off to school, they get on the school bus, they start looking around, they want to wear the cool hip brands that the other kids are wearing, Under Armour, Aeropostale. You name it. We tend to be more classically styled. We leave the tween and the teenage space to somebody else to fulfill. We're not trying to have kids look anything other than kids. We dress kids as kids. We use words like cute, cozy, cuddly to describe our products. We're not looking for the Justin Bieber look. We're not looking for Britney Spears. Now I have a daughter who describes Justin Bieber as cute, cozy, and cuddly, but that's not the look we're going for. So there's a certain wholesomeness to our products, very classic, very timeless, I think. In terms of the fun facts on this page, we're about a $2.5 billion company in terms of our revenues. We are a public company. We're listed on the New York Stock Exchange. Our market capitalization is about $3.5 billion. So we are of some size and scale. We believe we own the best brands in young children's apparel. That would be Carter's and Oshkosh and some other brands, which I'll take you through. It's a large marketplace. That's one of the things that makes it attractive. It's about a $21 billion market here in the United States. It's about a $40-some billion market outside the United States as we define it. It's a terrific place to do business. We've had terrific results the last several years. It's not been a great time for retail and consumer companies, broadly defined, I'd say since 2008. Many of you know that, but our business has never been stronger. We've had record years, basically for the last several years, 2012 included. Record revenues, record net income as well. And I think that speaks to the attractiveness of the product space, of the marketplace in which we compete. I wouldn't say that we are recession-proof, but I think the category itself is recession-resistant. So it's socially acceptable and laudable to feed and clothe children even in poor times. So I think that's led to a certain stability in our business, which has been very, very helpful. And importantly, as I said before, the business is changing. We're not the same Carter's that we were a number of years ago. We are expanding very much into direct-to-consumer. That's the most rapidly growing part of our business today is our retail business, our e-commerce business, what we're doing internationally. And then everything that's associated to support those efforts is changing and evolving as well. So hopefully we'll give you a flavor of all that today. The company does have a very long history in the industry. We were founded in 1865. We were actually founded before Coca-Cola was incorporated, another great Atlanta company. They've become somewhat larger than us in that intervening 100 years or so. But we have a very rich history. There was actually a Mr. Carter. He's depicted here. There appears to be some sort of a trend to be bald, to be CEO of the William Carter Company. So, and I hope the Carter's people don't carry back that I made a lot of bald jokes, but that appears to be the way, the way we're going. We were founded up in Massachusetts in 1865. The company moved its headquarters here to Georgia in the early 1990s, so we've actually been based here for quite a while. We've had manufacturing facilities over the years. We were an early entrant in the early part of the 20th century here in Georgia with some manufacturing facilities. You see here some of the great heritage pieces. One of the things that's great about being in a company that's 150 years old is you have all this great kind of history and heritage laying around the office. So here's some very early advertising for the Carter's brand. Carter's was actually known, there's a surprising amount of technology in baby clothes. We became known for the handcuff mitten that prevents infants from scratching their skin. The chiffon neck, which makes it easy to get a garment up over a child's head and ears. So we were known for those innovations. The other great thing is that when you've been part of a company that has this kind of extended franchise with consumers, you hear a lot of stories. Stories about how the brand has touched individual lives and individual families. And a couple of years ago, we tried to find pictures of this, but this is now apparently deep in the archives. But we received a letter from a family, and it included a photograph of about, I'd say, 6 or 7 women. They were all dressed in pink, and one of the women was holding, obviously, a new baby, and the baby was wearing a little pink sweater. And the gist of the letter was that every one of the women in this photo had worn this Carter's sweater over the course of the last 40 years. And they just wanted to let us know how meaningful it was for them to have something that they could pass down from generation to generation, and they wanted to share that with us. Now, my reaction as the cold-hearted finance guy was, wouldn't it be nice to buy a new sweater for this adorable new baby? So perhaps we're engineering the products maybe a little too good. So the other great brand that we own is the Oshkosh B'gosh brand. Similar heritage as it relates to being in business for generations. The Oshkosh business was founded in 1895 in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, originally as a workwear company. They became very well known for supplying folks who worked for the railroad industry. I know we have folks from that industry here with us today. So the iconic overalls became really well known and associated with the Oshkosh name. We bought the business in 2005. There were really 2 great national brands in the young children's marketplace. It was Carter's and Oshkosh B'gosh, and the 2 competed against one another for quite a number of years. The focus, as I'll go through, of the 2 brands is slightly different, but these were the 2 brands that spanned multiple retailers. They had a nationwide presence. No one else really was of the size and scale of these 2 businesses. So the businesses came together in 2005. I think the 2 had very similar heritage in terms of, obviously, longevity in the marketplace, a reputation for quality, for value, for durability. And actually, the iconic overall product, we still manufacture that today. It's actually still the most significant part of the product assortment, the best part of the assortment today. So it's a brand with similar heritage as Carter's. I love some of the imagery on this page, again, out of the archives, and we don't want to offend anybody politically, so we picked a Democrat and a Republican, and for any of those that are really into the monarchy, somebody from Great Britain as well. So JFK visiting an Oshkosh manufacturing facility. You've got Ronald Reagan receiving a pair of Oshkosh overalls. The picture with Princess Diana and a very young Prince Harry, it's hard to tell in this photograph, but he's actually wearing a pair of red striped Oshkosh overalls. So we love this picture. We don't include Prince Harry in any more of our advertising, given some of his more recent photography. So we don't really endorse that. But in any event, he was an awfully cute model back in the day. The 2 brands are very similar. We do have the largest share of the market, as I'll go through in a moment. They do stand for something slightly different. We've worked hard to position these brands separately to stand for distinct a distinct look and feel to stand for something different and unique with each consumer. The Carter's brand is really a baby brand. Although the sizes range from newborn up to age 7 or size 7, the sweet spot, if you will, is really newborn to 24 months. And so we have an outstanding market share, really heavily penetrated in the baby category itself, layette, as those products are sometimes referred to. We are really the authority with consumers, and particularly if you have a first-time child, if you're looking to outfit your house or the nursery for the first time, Carter's has an awful lot of authority in that very newborn category. A lot of times you'll go to showers and you'll see that the preponderance of the gifts there are Carter's, which always makes us feel good. Oshkosh B'gosh also has an offering in the younger end of the spectrum, but the focus is really a little older. It's a toddler brand, more preschooler, skews a little bit older. The brand does go up to age 12, but it's really oriented more around play clothes. So the two are a little distinct. I think the attributes that they share in common that I mentioned really are around value and quality. So the products are extraordinarily well made. We have all these stories, and I've seen this in my own family with I have four children, not so small as they used to be. My wife's family, her sisters are now having children. And so you see this great effect where these big Tupperware containers are passed from minivan to minivan as the kids grow up. Again, can't they go out and buy a new set of clothes for these kids? That's my dream, but there's an awful lot that's passed down from generation to generation. This is the marketplace here in the United States. It's about $21 billion, as I mentioned. You can see that we have the single biggest slices of it at 17%, about 14% for Carter's, about 3% for the Oshkosh brand. The big private label slice, a little over 40% of the market. That's been relatively consistent, I'd say, the last number of years. The private label merchandise are essentially the exclusive brands or the house brands that the department stores have developed over the last number of years. If you were to go back a dozen years or so ago, I think this slice probably would have been something like 20 or 25% of the market. It used to be that the private label offerings out in the marketplace were a distinctly poorer than the national brand offerings that we offer with Carter's and Oshkosh. I think that's really changed. I think the big retailers have invested an awful lot of resources behind product development. We tend to see some of our own styles and colors and assortments show up a season or two later, so I guess that's high flattery. But they have invested in making those products better, more stylish. The quality has improved. Why it's important to us is that we do have a big wholesale business, as I'll go through. We compete directly against private label. So typically our products sit immediately, physically next to the equivalent private label product in the marketplace. So making sure that we compete effectively. It's a very value-centric category. No one wants to overinvest in kids' clothes because obviously the child is growing very rapidly. That wardrobe is getting replaced. So the concept of value is very, very important. Private label is a significant force in the marketplace. The specialty retail slices that are listed here, I think we used to name what companies these were, and I think they got mad when we started referencing them in our presentation, so we took them out. But they're all names that you would recognize. It's Disney, it's Children's Place, it's Gymboree, it's Old Navy. So that pretty much covers it. So I'll put the legal slide back up at the end of my presentation. So. And then the slice at the bottom of the pie, all other. It's about 18 to 20% of the marketplace. These are very small businesses. They tend to be perhaps more at the upper end of the market. They have to be more expensive because they're small. They don't have the sourcing size and scale that we do in our business. Very small piece of the market. And largely, as we've been gaining share over the last number of years, we've been taking it from this all other slice. So whereas private label has remained relatively consistent over the years, this all other has shrunk. And we've had different theories on that, particularly coming through the recession where our sales have been really consistent. We've had very strong demand for our products over the years. I think people go to the brands that they trust, and there's nothing more personal than what you're going to put on your child. And if you're going to give a gift to someone and you see the private label assortment or you see some label that doesn't mean anything to you, you're going to likely trade up, we hope, to the Carter's and Oshkosh brand names. In terms of the financial performance of our business, we're not a hot and cold business, I'm pleased to say. It's great to be the CFO of a company that has had such consistent performance over the years, and a lot of it, most of it, before I arrived. But you can see back in the year 2000, we were less than $500 million in revenue. We've had roughly 16% average growth every year in the top line, which has been terrific. Profitability has increased just about 20%. over that same time period. So it's a wonderfully consistent business. Again, I think the category in which we compete has a certain resilience to it. So good times and bad times, people are having children. There has been a lot of talk about the birth rate dipping down. People I think, are deferring having their kids or starting their families, or perhaps they're waiting to have that second or third child. And we've seen a little bit of that effect. It's very difficult for us to do much with that data. It tends to come out from the government very much at a lag. We've looked underneath that data. It does suggest that the younger population of moms has dropped in the birth rate, so teenage moms, we think that's probably a good thing as a society. The older, more established population of mothers continue to have a pretty healthy birth rate. There's about 4 million new babies born in the United States a year, so we think that's an incredible pipeline of folks who will be our customers over the next few years. Just to give you a little bit more flavor about our business today, as I said, we're about $2.5 billion in revenue. It's a very diversified business model, and we're an incredibly complicated $2.5 billion company, and I think there's great value in that complexity. We seek broad distribution for our brands, and that's really what's reflected here. The biggest part of the business, really the legacy, and I'll talk a bit more about this, is the Carter's wholesale business. That's just about $1 billion business, about 40% of our balance of sale. Carter's retail, these are our own branded Carter's retail stores that the company owns and operates. About 400 locations under the Carter's brand today. That's very quickly getting to be about $1 billion business. Oshkosh is about a $400 million business in total. Most of that is in retail stores, a very small wholesale business today. And then international is something that I'll spend a little bit more time talking about today as well. We've realigned our financial reporting to actually break out our international results a bit more discreetly. So we operate in about 50 countries today around the world. Canada is a big market, Japan, throughout Asia. Oshkosh, interestingly, is the more international of the two brands. So the size of the business doesn't really tell you what the international presence is today, which we found interesting as we spent more time on this. But international is a significant growth initiative for us, and something that is creating an awful lot of additional complexity for us as it relates to the supply chain and infrastructure. So the biggest and the most established part of our business today is wholesale. These are all names that hopefully all of you recognize. We are the largest supplier of young children's apparel to the largest retailers of the world. So Kohl's, Costco, JCPenney's, we've been in business with these folks for quite a long period of time. Again, we are probably the most significant national brand that you would find in these department stores. It's a very competitive place. There are no long-term contracts in the wholesale channel. You earn your space every day. And truth be told, I think these folks, as much as they love Carter's, they'd love to be selling their private label merchandise. But it's really the Carter's name, it's really the Oshkosh B'gosh name that draws consumers in. They can advertise in their newspaper inserts or on television, Carter's and Oshkosh, and that reliably will drive traffic. And these folks have had up and down performance with the economy. I think it's been a tough period since the recession began. I think a bright spot pretty consistently across these retailers has been the children's category. So that young mother is one of the most valuable customers out there, and it's a customer that brings traffic into the store. So the kids business has been a relative bright spot. It's an important category. We've grown along with these folks. At a time when many of the suppliers to these companies have been having difficulty, we actually took that as an opportunity to go on the offense. So we've been in investing mode. And there's not a lot of door growth, I would say, in this channel. So there's not a lot of new Macy's being built. There's not a lot of new JCPenney stores being built. And so the issue for us is productivity. How do you continue to grow with these customers when they're not growing their door growth? And that's in part to my point about shrinking that all other slice of the pie. That's where we've been able to take market share. So as we prove to these customers that we're more productive with that square footage, we pick up more square footage. And again, we've been using our balance sheet, our cash flow to invest in this channel. This is a picture of an in-store shop that we've done with Kohl's. Kohl's is our biggest wholesale customer today. They buy basically everything in the Carter's assortment. And there's enough square footage here that it's allowed us to use some of our capital to create these fixturing packages, this great lifestyle photography. I don't think anybody does it better. I'm biased in terms of having really attractive, smiling babies wearing our clothes. So you'll see this kind of photography in the wholesale channel. Every now and then you see a baby that you kind of look at and say, that's not the most attractive baby in the world. But that's rare, and I usually don't make those comments out loud to people. But anyway, it's a very powerful, dominant presentation of the Carter's brand. So we occupy a good portion of the kids' floor in Kohl's. You would see similar shops like this at JCPenney's, at Macy's, and it's been a great way to reinforce that if you're in the kids' business and you're not carrying Carter's, you're really not in the kids' business. Two other important wholesale customers that are worth calling out separately. I'm sure you've heard of Target and Walmart. Many of you probably do a lot of business with them as well. In the early part of the 2000s, they came to us and said, you're obviously the experts in young children's apparel. Our kids' businesses are not doing that well. We'd love for you to help us develop an offering that's unique to our stores. And this was obviously a lot of operational complexity. These are very demanding customers. And so we developed exclusive brands for each of Target and Walmart. So at Target, we compete under the Just One You from the makers of Carter's. We have a couple of other specific brands. Precious First by Carter's is more of a gift-giving oriented brand, small business today. And then Genuine Kids is a sub-brand of the Oshkosh B'gosh brand. At Walmart, we have the Child of Mine brand by Carter's. And both of these businesses are significant. This in total probably represents about $300 million of our $2.4 billion. So it's become a considerable part of our business. There's a good portion of the baby market that is done in the mass channel. And this is where mom is shopping. So these are the best executing retailers right now, and we have a very, very, very significant business. We just, a couple of weeks ago, as it turns out, we were named Supplier of the Year at Walmart's Vendor Summit. So recognition of the contribution that we've made in helping them grow their business. A picture of our space at Target and Walmart. You can see fairly complete representation. This is what we call the brand wall. It's packaged goods. It's everyday essentials. So it's bibs, it's bodysuits, it's washcloths. It's the things that mom needs every day that she's replacing all the time. And so it's a very high frequency business, very high replenishment business for us as well. So we have to make sure operationally that we're able to get these folks back in stock when things are selling. There we go. I'm going to go one back. We're an apparel company, not a technology company. So we'll go one back if we can. There we go. So a picture of our retail stores for Carter's. We've been in the retail business for a long time. Both interestingly, separate companies, Carter's and Oshkosh B'gosh, were both very early movers in the outlet arena. So we have the largest market share today in the outlet space. And Carter's in particular, we call the Carter's outlet stores cash cows because they generate a top line of about $2 million a year. Extraordinarily profitable. So the traffic and the frequency of the purchase is terrific. So the challenge with the outlet arena is there's just not a lot of new outlet centers being built. So we're more or less saturated in that component. So a dozen or so years ago, we said let's see if we can't bring that successful outlet store model a little closer to the consumer. And that's what we call the Carter's brand store. So these are more strip center or neighborhood center locations. It's basically the same retail concept. It's the same inventory. That's one of the elegant things around our supply chain. We have common inventory across all of our channels. But it's the same inventory, same merchandise assortment, same pricing, same promotional cadence. Basically, it's just picking up that box and moving it closer to the consumer. So we have about 600 stores, retail stores today. There's about 400 under the Carter's name, a couple hundred under Oshkosh. This is really one of the primary growth vehicles for Carter's. We opened 60 new stores last year. I think we'll be on that same pace for Carter's, between 50 and 60 new stores a year for the next several years. So a lot of square footage growth. Again, there's not a lot of square footage growth happening in the retail industry. We're viewed as a growth company. Consumers really love these stores. We're biased, obviously, but we think it's the best place to shop for what you need for a new child. This is a picture of an Oshkosh B'gosh store. When we purchased Oshkosh back in 2005, it's largely an outlet store business today. If you recall the pie chart, about $80 million of business we do in the wholesale channel. But it's primarily a retail store business and largely based on the outlets today. Our strategic agenda around Oshkosh is to develop a growth vehicle, a retail growth vehicle for the brand. Again, the outlet store arena, very profitable, very productive stores for us. We're just not building a lot of new outlet developments here in the United States. This is a more competitive product space for us. The play clothes category is probably 5 times as big as the baby category, the baby marketplace, and it's just much more competitive. So you'll see a lot of the adult apparel brands, a lot of the premium brands. They go down as far as toddler, preschool apparel. They perhaps don't go all the way down to baby, because baby products, again, very technical in nature. You have to have a lot of units to make money in the baby space. So there's some natural barriers to entry in the baby category. Not as many in the play clothes category. So there's a lot of competitors, a lot of substitutes, a lot of alternatives for consumers. We struggled a little bit to find the right right formula here for a retail store. But we've continued to experiment. The brand resonates really, really well with consumers. This is a picture of a store up at the Mall of Georgia, just north of here. Hopefully many of you have had a chance to see this store. We're testing a few more like this. We've opened similar stores in the Houston Galleria Mall. We have stores in San Francisco, stores in Boston. So this is a little bit of the evolving part of the business model with Oshkosh B'gosh. E-commerce. So we are an extremely late follower to e-commerce. I joined the company about 4 years ago, and e-commerce was on the radar screen. For whatever reason, it had not been prioritized. I think there's a lot of reasons as to why e-commerce hadn't been pursued. And I'd go to these Wall Street investor conferences, and it's usually the same roster of companies that show up at these events and give their pitch and tell you about the company and all of that. And I took some comfort talking to investors. Well, we're not online. I agree, that doesn't make sense. We should be online. Every other company has been online for probably 10 years or so, or more. And I took some comfort in saying, well, there's this other company, Columbia Sportswear. They're a lot like us. They have outlet stores. They have a big wholesale business, and they're not online yet. And so I happened to follow the CFO of Columbia Sportswear in the speaking agenda one day, and he stood up, and the first thing he said, I'm pleased to announce that today we've launched our e-commerce business. We became officially, I think, the last two great brands in America not to be online. But it allowed us, I think, to execute in a very high level of execution. We weren't sure how much business we were going to do in this channel, quite candidly. I mentioned that we're in the wholesale channel. Wholesale alone is 17,000 points of distribution for the Carter's brand, about another 10,000 points of distribution with the Oshkosh brand. So that's a lot of Carter's product. That's a lot of Oshkosh product out in the marketplace. The brands have been around a long time. People know how to find them. We think they're going to be big online. We think it would be successful, but who knows? So we launched the business back in 2010. We went out and found a handful of folks that knew something about e-commerce. They helped us launch the business. We launched it in a very low direct investment fashion. We launched with a series of outsourced partners, so third-party fulfillment, third-party technology platform. Again, as the CFO, it was a great way to launch a business that you're really unsure about because we didn't have to put a lot of money on the table. This thing has really taken off like a rocket ship. So this is a big part of our business today, growth well beyond what we had anticipated, much sooner. We're probably 2 or 3 years earlier in terms of top-line performance and profitability than we thought we would be. And that's now driving, as I'll talk about, much of the complexity that we're seeing in the supply chain and in our logistical operations. But it's been a terrific window to new customers. A lot of the data that you collect, it's a very data-rich business, so you're collecting information, how long they're sitting on a particular landing page on the website, what products do they look at, what do they put in their shopping cart and don't check out. So all of that's kind of new to us. These are very valuable customers. And the customer that shops with us online, shops with us in store, may shop with us in the wholesale channel. These multi-channel customers in particular, if you look at the data in terms of what they're spending with us and the profit per customer, those are absolutely who you want shopping with us. They're absolutely the most valuable customers out there. So just in terms of putting some numbers around it, this business in its first partial year did about $20 million. We were pleased with that. That was $3 or $4 million above what we had planned. But you look at the tremendous growth. So we did just under $150 million in business in 2012. We have very aggressive growth plans for 2013. We think this business can be several $100 million over the course of the next few years. And it does make sense when you stop to think about it. The consumer knows us. They know our brands. They know our sizing. They know how things fit. They know the quality. And importantly, they're time-starved. So while we have this great outlet store business, sometimes putting the kids in the minivan and trucking out and hauling them around an outlet center isn't the best way to spend an afternoon. So if you want to shop at midnight, you want to shop at 2 a.m. My wife seems to shop continually, so she's really embraced the online technology. So in any event, it's been a great business for us and a lot of growth ahead, I think. I mentioned international. We're in, as I said, 50-some countries around the world. This historically has been a licensed business arrangement for us where we find partners, local market partners, and we license the Carter's and Oshkosh brands, and we collect royalty income based on their sales. It's been a very low-touch model historically. We allowed those licensed partners to source the product. They'd have to adhere to our product quality standards. We would give them some help on marketing and how to use the brand names and such. But for the most part, we would sign up these partners, we would let them do their thing, and as long as the royalty check was showing up with regularity in the mail, that's about the extent of our interest. This really came on our radar screen, international, as an initiative several years ago as a decent opportunity for us. Like a lot of companies, we think there's tremendous opportunities outside the United States. So in consumer equivalent sales, we probably have something like $400 million of business that's being done outside the United States. We're not booking all of that, but in terms of what the consumer is handing over to somebody for Carter's and Oshkosh products, it's about $400 million today. So we started looking at some of our bigger licensees. Canada, which is the subject of this particular slide, really quickly came to the forefront. Canada is an extremely attractive market, as you all know. Very similar in many respects to the United States. Very similar preferences. There's a lot of cross-border shopping activity. So we had a licensee in Canada. It's a great story. It's a husband and wife founded a young children's apparel business in the early 50s. As the story goes, this couple received some money for their wedding. So instead of having a big fancy wedding, they went out and opened a children's apparel store. And so the wife and the husband ran it for I'd say 10 years or so. And then unfortunately the husband passed away. Mom called her oldest son and said, I need some help running this business. Can you come and help me out for a few years? And that turned into a great partnership. They built a business called Bonnie Togs, which is largely based in the Ontario area. And in the year 2007, they became our licensee in Canada. So they introduced Carter's and Oshkosh product into their Bonnie Tog stores, and it quickly became about half of their balance of sale. So they had their particular private label brands in their stores, and they had the Carter's and Oshkosh brands, and it became so successful, they came to us and said, you know, Canadians can't get enough of Carter's and Oshkosh. We'd love to open a co-branded store. We'll put Carter's in the front of the store. We'll put Oshkosh B'gosh, the best of both assortments. Really two complementary brands. So again, newborn to 24 months, play clothes with Oshkosh. We think it'd be great to put them together. And again, we said, well, it's going to be your balance sheet, your capital. We'd be pleased for you to try some of those stores. So we went up a few years ago and we looked at these stores, absolutely beautiful. And they've proven to be incredibly productive. So the consumer gets the connection between Carter's and Oshkosh. And at the time we went up to visit, they had about 13 of those stores. And we liked it so much, we said, well, why don't we just buy your company? How many more of these stores can you have? And they said, well, a lot more if you're doing it as opposed to us doing it. So we brought it into the family. So we've now owned the business up in Canada for about 1.5 years, almost 2 years. It's been terrific. So Canada will contribute, well, I should say in 2012 contributed about $150 million of revenue, probably $30 million of operating profit. We are opening about 20 new stores a year in Canada, again in this co-branded format. They've now extended beyond Ontario. They were largely based around Toronto. They've moved out to the West Coast. They've moved to the East Coast. We just entered Quebec in the last several weeks. So this has been a great story for us. I think it's been a bit of a template for us that if we find the right partner in some of these international markets, we know the brands will do well. It's about hiring a good management team. It's about having a concept that you have confidence in to continue to invest. So Canada will be a big part of our story. It's an attractive market in a lot of respects. It's not as heavily stored as the United States. It's not as intensely promotional as the United States. And like a lot of other retailers, we found our way to Canada. We're also pursuing our wholesale business. We're going to start servicing Target Canada this year and Walmart Canada this year. Again, further complexity as to how we support those big wholesale customers outside the United States. The newest part of the business, I was in Japan last week. We have bought our next largest licensee, which happens to be in Japan. So Japan is the third largest children's apparel market in the world behind the United States and Canada. So lots of kids still there. It's an affluent customer. It's a customer that likes to spend money on their kids. It's a bit of a bellwether or a bit of a signaling market for the rest of Asia, so it's very important to have a presence in Japan so that you can do other things throughout Asia. So we have, this is very new. It's largely a combination of shop-in-shops within larger department stores. So you can see the Hankyu name. That's a better department store that we just opened in the last couple of weeks. That's why I was over in Japan. I believe those banners say Carter's and Oshkosh. I can't confirm that, but that's what we were told that they say. But we're off to a good start in Japan. It's a small business for us today. We're focused on a lot of other business development around Asia. We've been working to identify a good partner in China. China's obviously a very complex marketplace. The great thing is all the product is largely made in China, so there's some real scale efficiencies in terms of not having to transport the product. But hopefully we're on the verge of having some things to announce with regard to China over time. So to transition a little bit around from the front end of the business, so I think you get a sense that we started out as a wholesale company, rich history in the fabric of America in terms of providing children's apparel. The business model is changing. We're going more direct to consumer. We love the wholesale business. Some folks have said to me, do you want to become just a retailer or just a direct-to-consumer company? Because it's kind of a pain to deal with wholesale customers. And they are challenging to work with, but we love the wholesale business. It's a terrific business. Our business is extraordinarily profitable, great size and scale. We think the broad distribution that it offers for the Carter's and Oshkosh brands is very important. It's very complementary to what we do in our own retail stores. But the business is changing. More of the growth is going to come from the direct-to-consumer businesses. More of the growth is going to come from the international side of the business. And that implies certain things for our infrastructure and how we run the business, how we control the business. I think this page, as it relates to marketing, is a good example. We've always been historically a pretty quiet company. A lot of folks don't even know that we're based here in Atlanta. As it relates to marketing, we haven't historically had to do much of that. With a big wholesale business, that was largely the responsibility of our wholesale customers to talk to their consumer. We might participate in a preprint advertising, some kind of co-op advertising, or a circular. We might participate that way. But largely, marketing and advertising wasn't a big part of what we had to focus on historically. But now with a very big direct-to-consumer business, we are collecting customer information at the point of sale. I think it speaks to the relationship we have with our consumers. We capture name and address, email information at the point of sale. Everyone's asked for that when you go shopping. We're extraordinarily successful. Folks want to hear from us. And so we've started to make use of that. We have a very successful direct mail program. We have a very successful email program. We've been investing in this area. We've invested behind CRM technology so that if you have little boys at home, we're not sending you little girl offerings. If your child is now 3 years old, we're not sending you things for newborns. So it's a level of sophistication in how we're interacting with customers that we've never had before. And I think this is something that we'll continue to test, we'll continue to evolve. We've moved heavily into social media, so we have about 1 million Facebook fans, which is extraordinary growth. We have something like 300,000 Oshkosh fans on Facebook. So that's all evolving and changing. You know, it has been suggested that perhaps we go way back in the value chain and put Carter's coupons in like Barry White CDs. That's not an idea that we've aggressively pursued yet at this point. An important step we did take in late 2012, though, was to launch a brand marketing campaign for the Carter's brand. Again, this is a 150-year-old brand. Most people know the Carter's brand, but we really felt as the next step in the evolution of what Carter's could be here in the United States and outside the United States, we wanted to invest behind marketing and branding. So the tagline is, "Count on Carter's." It's our first effort ever kind of fulsome integrated marketing campaign in store, the print marketing that we do, emails, and actually television. So we've never had television advertising for Carter's. There has historically been a little bit for Oshkosh going back into the 80s, but Carter's had never really had a presence on television. So I believe we have one of the clips that we'll share with you.
I was born on a cold September Sunday. That first night was a doozy, but you got the hang of it, and together we grew and grew. Some days were fussy, but others were all smiles. And even now, when you hold my hand, I hold it right back. Because the day I became yours, you became mine. From the first night home to the first day of school and every first in between. Count on Carter's.
What do you think? If you have to use your napkins, the tablecloth, I mean, we had people welling up all over the place. Now, I've seen it about 1,000 times, so the emotional reaction has muted a little bit. But we think it speaks to the power of the brand. This is obviously an inherently emotional purchase. There's nothing more personal than your child, and you want the best for your child. And I think it speaks to, none of these kids come with instruction manuals, as I can painfully testify. And I think that the spirit of that comes through the Count on Carter's campaign. So hopefully you'll see more of that kind of marketing from us here in the next year or so. So moving on a little bit more to the center of discussion for today, and that relates to supply chain. This is a pie chart from 1999. So as I said, we were less than $500 million in revenue. We were a much simpler business model, even though we did have 2 channels, retail stores. We had about 140 retail stores back at this point. We had a wholesale business that had about 4,600 points of distribution. So that compares to the roughly 27,000 that we have today. Much different business model. So fast forwarding into 2012, you can see that we've added $2 billion in revenue. We've added an astounding number of points of distribution for wholesale. We're now at 600 some retail stores as opposed to less than 150. And obviously we've introduced e-commerce. So our business model is changing. I'd say we're extraordinarily good at servicing wholesale customers. A lot of the way we're wired still today in terms of how we report our business, how we talk about it internally, the supply chain, the logistics operation, we're really good at big carton in, big carton out. And we've had to develop the capabilities to support a direct-to-consumer business. And we've made very, very good progress on that. In terms of our sourcing model itself, you can see back in 1999, we were a very late mover overseas. So as late as the late 90s, we were actually still manufacturing. These were in company-owned and operated manufacturing facilities. A good portion was made in the Caribbean and Central and South America. Very little, actually, in Asia. It was not until the early part of the 2000s that we started to move some of our production to Asia. You can see that China and some of the other countries started to become a bit more significant part of our mix. Still had company-owned manufacturing facilities in the Caribbean and in Mexico. And then fast forward to today, this is probably not too much of a surprise. We don't have any company-owned manufacturing facilities any longer. We outsource this production. The vast majority of everything we make is made in Asia. China is about half of the balance of production. That has been moving around a little bit over the years. But Asia is the center of the universe for our industry. Just some fun facts around the supply chain. It's an extraordinarily unit-intensive business, which makes sense. Those of you that are parents know that you're buying multiples of everything. And so we sourced something close to 400 million units in 2012. I mentioned the extreme number of points of distribution that we have to keep track of. We do ship to over 80 countries. It represents 6,000 containers. And then obviously we're sourcing from a lot of different countries. Very complex situations around logistics, duties, customs, all of that are things that we have to keep track of. In terms of the priorities for the supply chain, they are many. We have a very tired-looking group of supply chain executives here with me today. That's because they're busy, and it's a very complex set of tasks that they're working on. First and foremost, the international business is generating a lot of complexity. So I mentioned this licensed model historically, very low touch. In some markets, that's going to continue to be the right business model for us. But we have extraordinary capabilities in supply chain, in merchandising, in marketing. Those are capabilities. I was walking through a store in China not too long ago, and it was one of our licensed partners, and we picked up the product. It was kind of a scratchy piece of denim, not a great-looking product, not a great feeling product. So we asked about it, and they said, yeah, we're having some difficulty in sourcing this product. Well, we have to be one of the largest sourcers of denim in the world, particularly for children's apparel. Why are you trying to source that on your own? Why are you trying to approach those factories on your own? So good question. It's also been part of our supply chain where we do have wholesale relationships outside the United States. It's been our historical model to bring that product from China here to Georgia and then ship it back out again to Asia, which I'm no expert in supply chain. Again, the table is nodding at that. That doesn't make a lot of sense. So we are investing behind capabilities here internationally. We have set up some 3PL facilities in Asia to better serve these partners today. We're making use of that marketing and merchandising capability as well. The business model continues to evolve. As I said, we have 600 retail stores. We'll have probably 75 more in total this year than we had a year ago. A tremendous amount of complexity in serving those stores. We've implemented some new programs, and maybe Leo will talk a little bit more about this on the panel, more of a quick backup initiative. So the best margin that you earn on product is on product that is selling well, that it's in the store when the consumer is there and willing to shop and willing to pay. It doesn't help not to be in stock when mom comes through that door. So we've gotten more sophisticated in how we plan and how we allocate inventory to our stores. There's a level of technology that supports that, but fundamentally it's our supply chain working in partnership with our retail business to make sure that we have the best possible inventory position at any particular point in time. Inventory management, I mentioned that Home Depot number scares me a little bit. It's the biggest investment on our balance sheet. It's something that you can get sideways on quickly. You can either have too much inventory or not enough inventory. Neither in our business are a good situation. And then sourcing in general. So as I mentioned, we were a very late mover to Asia. We are now fully sourced in China and throughout the other Asian marketplaces. Historically, our model has been to make use of sourcing agents, and actually one in particular, Li & Fung, and many of you who know Li & Fung, very much a part of our transition from US-based manufacturing over to outsourced manufacturing, has been a very, very good partner to us over the years. Most of the sourcing base was concentrated with them. I don't think it's ever a good idea to concentrate all your eggs in one basket. So we've moved to diversify that. In the last year, we have opened a sourcing office in Hong Kong. We have about 80 people in our office in Hong Kong. So we've started to source our product directly, meaning that we take ownership of that relationship with the factory. We handle the negotiations, we monitor quality, we monitor production schedules, and you kind of disintermediate the agent relationship. So we're about, I'd say, between 5 and 10% direct source today. That's moving somewhere closer to 50-50 over the next 4 or 5 years. So we think that's an exciting opportunity for us. So I'll end on a couple investment notes here. The Brazelton, or I was told Brazelton, Georgia Distribution Center. This is a new facility for us. Given the tremendous growth, tremendous change in our business model, we needed some additional distribution center capacity, and specifically the e-commerce business. So we've had a very good set of outsourced partners helping us with e-commerce, but we very quickly have eclipsed their capacity. So we had a concern as we got into the middle part of last year that we didn't think this vendor could necessarily support us from a distribution point of view for the holiday peak, because of how rapidly the business was building. So we went through a very comprehensive effort to look at our alternatives. We looked at multiple geographies. Fortunately and happily, we were able to find a facility here in Georgia, just north of Atlanta. It's a 1 million square foot facility. It's one of the biggest single buildings I think I've ever been in. Again, as the cold-hearted CFO, you walk through this place, oh my God, do we need all this space? But I'm assured that we do, given the tremendous growth that we have planned in the business. So e-commerce is the first tenant in the business. They're up and running. We moved the fulfillment for e-commerce in-house as of August of last year, and that's going extraordinarily well. The next phase for this facility is to bring in the multi-channel capabilities. So we will start fulfilling our retail business from this facility and our wholesale business as well. Again, the great aspect, or one great aspect of our business model is that we have common inventory. So having that all in one facility that we can make use and move it across channels depending on how demand is coming in, we think that's going to be an extraordinary opportunity. And then importantly, we expect this facility to create about 1,000 jobs here in Georgia. So we're all about economic development. We want to be good citizens here in Georgia. We're very pleased to be bringing these new jobs to the state of Georgia. We're doing everything we can to have it be a very green facility, so that the bubbles on this page reflect a number of the initiatives around energy and efficiency. That's a bit of a hallmark of, as we're setting up this facility, this has been planned from the early days of planning for the Brazelton facility. So it's an important initiative for us. I think we have just a minute or so of video just to share a little bit with you about that Brazelton facility. I think you'll see some messages that we collected through the e-commerce peak through the holiday season. So we'll take a look at those. Okay, so it's an impressive facility. It's the single biggest capital project in the history of the company, something like a $90 million project. So there'll be an incredible level of automation, of technology. We're very excited about what this investment can do to help drive the future growth of our business. Just to end on a very high note, as Paige mentioned, we made some decisions in the last year or so. We're a very spread out company. We seem to have people kind of parked everywhere, including a couple hundred folks up in Connecticut, where historically our retail business has been headquartered. Actually, most of the finance staff sits in Connecticut as well. And our business, increasingly integrated, increasingly a multi-channel business model, we felt like that wasn't the right step. So we undertook an evaluation of where should we locate. And so we made a decision last year that we're going to bring those 200 folks here to Atlanta. I think on these days where the Northeast is getting more snow, they're increasingly happy about coming to Atlanta. And we've shared what a great place it is to be citizens of Atlanta. And we've been outgrowing our present headquarters, which is in Midtown on 14th Street. So we announced late last year that we are going to move to a new corporate headquarters building. This is a bit of an artist rendering. The Carter's logo is not yet at the top of this building. But it will be later this year. So we will move our corporate headquarters, our global headquarters, to the Phipps Tower, which is adjacent to Phipps and Lenox up in Buckhead. We're very excited about this. And again, this is going to create more jobs here in Atlanta. And I think it just speaks to the growth that we're envisioning. This is a company that is bound for great things. We're investing behind that. We're growing aggressively. And we need the infrastructure to support that. Physically, we need a place to put people. And that's a good problem to have. So that's it for my remarks. Hopefully that's a good overview of our business today. You can have a sense of how important supply chain, technology, people, process, all those things are in supporting our agenda. I hope you enjoy the rest of the summit. Thank you for the invitation.